Shabbat shalom, everyone. Years ago in high school, we were spending a night together with a bunch of friends, and we were playing a card game. Now, the card game is called BS. It's an acronym. I won't tell you what the full name of the card game is because we're in shul, but it is an acronym. And it is a bluffing game. It is a game of bluffing. So how it goes, I'll try to explain this really quickly, but how the card game works is that you deal out the entire deck of cards. Everyone has their hand. They keep their hand to their chest. And then it's bluffing to try to get rid of your cards. You start with 2, and then you go to 3, and you go to 4, and you put your cards down, and you say, I have 2 2s, and you put them into the middle, even if you have 1 2 or 0 2s, right? Your goal is to try to get rid of all your cards. Now, where it gets interesting, and hence the name, is that eventually you'll get to a place where you'll need to get rid of cards that you don't have, right? So then you put in those cards and you say, I have 3 8s. And if someone says, BS, and you turn out to be lying, then you have to take the entire discard pile, right? And if they call you on it, but they're wrong, they have to take the entire discard pile. So that is essentially the game. So we were playing this game, and we had just finished 10s, and we got to my friend. We'll call her, you know what? She's not watching, I promise. Her name is Rachel. And we got to Rachel. Sorry, Rachel. And we got to Rachel, and so cavalierly, with incredible confidence, Rachel says, 5 11s. Now that bluff is doing double duty because there's 4 of each card in a deck of cards, and there are no 11s. There aren't any 11s in a deck of cards. Jack could buy it. There are no 11s. She lost. She lost that game, and many others. A lot of people have been sending me articles and videos and influencers and clips from television, all about what's going on in Gaza, all about what's going on with anti-Semitism in the United States and around the world. And I have to tell you, the one common factor that a lot of these articles have in common is that a lot of these talking heads, a lot of these pundits, a lot of these authors are cavalierly putting down 5 11s. What I mean by that is a lot of people really think they have a lot. Everyone is an expert on this topic. Everyone. And I don't know if some people know that they're bluffing, and some people don't know they're bluffing and truly believe that they have 5 11s, but the common denominator is that over and over again, I see people way outside of their areas of expertise, laying things down with the most conviction, with the most sense of, I know that I am right in this, and it is incredibly problematic. Incredibly problematic for a few different reasons. The first reason being, of course, that we live in an age of misinformation. The majority of the news, the majority of the things that we consume are wrong in some way. We're just not getting objective news anymore. And so the propagation of misinformation or disinformation is harmful because it is how we see the world. When we read something, when we see something, we take that as fact, and of course it skews the way that we see a conflict, or it skews the way that we see, chas v'chalila, other people, other human beings. It puts glasses on us, and sometimes the glasses aren't great. But even more problematic, in my opinion, is the fact that when these people are putting down their 5 11s, all of them, with very few exceptions, can probably find a couple here and there, are taking this idea of conflict resolution, and they are focusing on conflict and leaving resolution far out of the picture. resolution doesn't seem to be on anyone's lips. And that's a chaval. That really defeats the entire purpose of what we are supposed to be doing, because if we're focusing on conflict, that might be a good strategy in a card game. It might work in cards. But our life, our existence, our shared society as people, as Jews, as human beings, is not a competition for one person to get ahead. We succeed, we win at this game that we call life by elevating each other and by lifting each other up. We focus on resolution. That is what we are meant to do. And our Torah this morning has a beautiful understanding, a beautiful look at how we are supposed to do this. And so I want to invite you to grab your Eitz Chaim. I want to invite you to grab your Chumash. And to turn to page 488. And we're going to read verses 18 through verse 22. So starting on page 488 and going to page 489. Does anyone want to read for us? Any volunteers? I brought the mic down. That's why I did that. Anyone? David Moses? You were voluntold, David. I'm sorry. Bottom of page 488 into page 489.
Page 400, starting with...
Make 2 cherubim. It should start. I got you.
48, I'm on the right one?
Yep. Make 2 cherubim.
Make 2 cherubim of gold. Make them of hammered work. At the 2 ends of the cover. Where do I go from here? Over here?
Yep.
Make 1 cherub at one end, and the other cherub at the other end. Of one piece with the cover shall you make the cherubim and its 2 ends. The cherubim shall have their wings spread out above, shielding the cover with their wings. They shall confront each other, the faces of the cherubim being turned toward the cover. Place the cover on top of the ark. After depositing inside the ark the pact I will give you, there I will meet with you, and I will impart to you from above the cover, from between the 2 cherubim that are on top of the ark of the pact, all that I will command you concerning the Israelite people.
Yasher Koch. Beautifully done. So that's an intense visual, but if you've seen Indiana Jones, you know that visual. The Ark of the Covenant, with the 2 angels that are supposed to be facing one another. And of course, they have their wings spread up to the heavens, and they are told that they're facing one another, and that while they're facing one another, all of the rabbis, literally all of the rabbis, hundreds, thousands of rabbis all throughout Jewish history have taken a look at this and said, this is it. This is what it's all about. What does it mean to engage with other people? It means to elevate ourselves to the point of the angels and to look directly in each other's faces and to see another human being. Hundreds and hundreds of comments throughout rabbinic history, throughout the Rishonim and the Achronim, all these different commentators have all said the same thing. Look at how beautiful this is. And it wasn't until the late mid-century and going into modern Judaics that some very important rabbis came and asked a really profound question. How do we do that? That's really hard. It is really hard to look into the eyes of someone when we're hurt, when we're angry, when we're sad, when we have our 11s that we want to play. That is also part of the human condition, is that encountering someone, experiencing another, going face to face and looking deeply in the eyes of someone, whether that be the ideas of Buber or of the great philosopher Levinas or the Torah of itself, this beautiful concept of seeing the other, of really embracing the other so that we can understand their plight, so that we can understand their pain, is hard. It is not a given that that is something easy to do. But there's something else in that passage that David just read for us that's really, really important. And I think it's the starting point for all of this. If you'll go back to that same section with me, starting with verse 20, it says, "The cherubim shall have their wings spread out above, shielding the cover with their wings. They shall confront each other. They'll be face to face. And the faces of the cherubim of the cherubim being turned toward the cover." Now, what does that mean? It means that these two angels, these two cherubim, are not actually staring each other directly eye to eye. Their heads are bowed. They're looking at one another, and they're also looking at the Torah. That is the place of starting. And some of our great commentators have said the most important thing is that first and foremost they see Torah. That is the guiding principle even before seeing anyone else. But I think that this passage is actually saying something a little bit different. I think it's saying that first and foremost, before we can encounter the other, before we can do anything, we have to bow our heads in humility. And we have to acknowledge that where we're coming from isn't going to work if we're holding our cards like this. It's not possible for us to see the other, to see the pain of the other, to see the authenticity, the truth, the heartbreak of the other, if we're keeping all of our cards close to our chest. Now here comes the hard part. Life isn't a card game. Our shared existence is not a card game. The only way that we do this is when we lay down our cards and show the people that we're in conversation with what we have in our hand. And then we put our cards together and we work towards something better. That's the only way that we can do this. Which is tough because in our cards, I promise you we don't have 511s. Sometimes we have good things in our hand. Sometimes we have heartbreak in our hand. Sometimes we have fear, hesitancy, sadness, trepidation. All of those things that are in our hands, the only way that we can see one another is when we lay them out. For our message to all of us this morning, I know that that's not easy. I know that that comes with a lot of risk and vulnerability. And I don't have a good answer to you other than I don't see what other choice we have. Vulnerability comes with the prospect and the possibility of pain, but it is also the only way that we can build. And our Torah is all about building and about striving for something better and greater and about reaching this point of peace and unity and an understanding that we can only get better when we lift up the people near us, when we can see the pain of the others, and that we can also share our pain so that they can see us for what is going on in our lives. So I'm going to invite you this morning to do that holy work with me. It's tough. It's hard. But I am telling you, I have 0 11s. Not one. I have some 2s. I have a 6. Some of those things are good and some of those things are bad. I've got qualities that are good about me. I've got baggage and hang-ups and idiosyncrasies and fears, just like every person does. And I'm willing to share them with you, and I invite you to share them with me, because that is how we grow. That is how we build. That is how we reach the holiness that's asked from us from our Torah. Life is not a card game. Life is about building each other up. Life is about making the Mishkan. Life is about building holiness so that God can dwell within us. Shabbat Shalom.